Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince, and as we try to bring you cutting-edge interviews of our local and regional coaches and talents around, and today is no exception to the rule. We have been fortunate enough to tie down the head baseball coach for the Tomball Cougars, and that is none other than Mr. Doug Rush. How you doing today, Coach Rush?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, we're glad to have you on board here at the OpenMic Broadcast Network. Now, for those who are trying to figure out, they say that name sounds familiar. Give us a little background introduction on who Doug Rush is and how he ended up in Tomball, Texas.
Well, I came down here from the Dallas area where I grew up, shooting 92, coached at Lee College for a year or two, and couldn't feed my family, so I got into high school, and I ended up coaching in Waller for 8 years. So I was a Waller high school coach, and then I went to Spring High School, and then I've been at Tomball the last 6 years. So the last 2 or 3 years, I've been mainly around this area.
So you've been kicking the can around Waller County, parts in the northern end of Harris County, and you found your groove and your winning ways, man. You guys have had success at Tomball, falling a little short this year. Give us a little recap on how things took place for you guys.
Well, we had kind of what I thought was going to be a rebuilding season. Not a rebuilding in Tomball means, I thought we'd make the playoffs, but didn't know how far we'd get. And we got hot again at the right time and beat Georgetown, a very good Georgetown team in the first round, beat the number 2 team in the state, College Station, in the second round, beat Cedar Park in the third round, and then won game 1 of the fourth round against Port Neches Grove and fell just short. They beat us the last 2 games last Saturday to put us out.
Now, I know it's always difficult to come up on the short end of the stick, but you got to be pleased with your results, especially with the expectations you had coming into the season, correct?
Yeah, I was real pleased with it. We got a lot of really good players returning, and I just want to tell everybody, winning a state championship in Texas it's very difficult to do. You got to win 5 series against real tough competition just to get to the state tournament. So, we're pretty pleased anytime we make a run into the 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
Now, when you talk about a tough rounds and tough bouts to be, the district that you happen to be coming from and representing, which is District 5A-19, that's a pretty tough district and probably one of the toughest districts in the state of Texas as far as baseball is concerned.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's usually there's 2 teams that end up sitting at home that could play with a lot of other teams that are in the playoffs. So it's always a scary situation going into district because you don't want to be one of those teams that slumps and you have a pretty good ball club, but you end up in 5th place and out of the playoffs.
Yeah, it can be a tough pill to swallow, but that's what they say. That it's all about shaping and molding future leaders, and what better way to learn and grow through the adversities, ups and downs of sports life, right?
That's what's so wonderful about sports is it teaches you life lessons you don't really have an opportunity to learn anywhere else, in my opinion.
Well, we're talking with Coach Doug Rush of the Tomball Cougars. And, Coach, I got to ask this question because, it's a crazy job in the world of sports. It's one of the only jobs that a head coach will take a job knowing that one day he's going to be asked to be relieved of that job. So my question is, why do you do what you do?
Well, it's just I think for some people there's just nothing else they could do. It's not that there's no talent there, but just it's something I'm so passionate about. I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. And there's some negatives to it. You get some parents on you, and you get some people that get upset with you at times. And, obviously the crowd doesn't always think you're doing what you need to be doing at a given moment in the game. But being around the kids every day and teaching the game of baseball, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
All right, very good. Now, it's obvious, Coach, that you have success everywhere you've gone. You have to have a system, but do you have, without giving up too many of your trade secrets, do you have any ground core basics or what you would recommend to an upcoming coach on how to establish a solid program?
Well, I mean, you have got to develop a program based on pitching and defense first. And, I think one of the things that's helped us over the years, and it took me several years to figure out, was you got to practice most of the time at game speed, and you got to find a way to get kids what I call pseudo live at bats every day, and have live ground balls with runners, and do a lot of stuff after you get done with the fundamental period that really moves faster than the game itself is. And once you get that figured out, then it's about developing a really deep pitching staff. You just keep working with them and making sure you're paying just as much attention to your 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th guys as you are to your top 3 or 4, because once you get in the playoffs, you need them all. So I think we go into series and district games the way we conduct our practice, having a lot more at bat and a lot more just live looks than a lot of other teams do with the way they practice. So, it's just a philosophy we kind of developed over time that it seems to be working for us right now.
Now, you said it took you a while to discover that. How deep were you into your career when the light went off for you?
I probably could have done a lot better job in Waller, Texas with what I had, because we didn't have kids that were used to playing as much baseball as, kids in Brenham and the Houston area, all that kind of stuff. And if I'd have practiced there the way I do now, I think we'd have done a little better. It just kind of evolved over time. I started experimenting with stuff, and then, I got around a couple of really good assistant coaches, and obviously I'm a student of the game, and I read coaching books and watch coaching video all the time, and finally it just kind of just dawned on me that, hey, we gotta get these kids live looks. And another thing really was, I remember, back when I was young, I started playing a whole lot of slow pitch softball in my 20s, and I'd been used to being a pitcher and infielder, and so I got stuck out in the outfield one season and became a pretty good outfielder because I kept getting so many fly balls. And it was just like, well, you know what? The way to get better is to just keep doing it over and over and over. So that's kind of what we just started doing in practice. We just kept doing it over and over and over.
Over and over and over till it got sometimes numbing to your players, I can imagine. But then it kicks in what they call that non-responsive awareness that you have going on, with it's second nature, the muscle memory, and all that's implied when it comes to developing in the skill of baseball.
Yeah, we like to tell the kids, and they believe it, that there's nothing they're going to see in the game they hadn't seen in practice, and they're going to see it at a slower pace. So, they go in there believing in themselves, and it gives them a little confidence, I believe.
All right, we're talking with head baseball coach Doug Rush of the Tomball Cougars. Finished in the 3rd spot of their district play, but however, went very deep in the series of playoffs, come up a little bit short behind Brenham, and I want to say, was it Magnolia West? No, Brenham and Magnolia.
Brenham and Magnolia than us. It was 12-2, 11-3, 10-4.
And then the Bulldogs crept in with the 7-7 record, and they created a little noise in the early stages of round 1 against Rouse, but ended up falling short. Now, when you size up your district as a whole, what is it that makes this district so special when it comes to baseball?
I just think it's the Houston area. Especially the north and west Houston area, but really all over Houston. It's just known as a baseball hotbed. You talk to any college coach, any scout, and we're one of 3 counties in the country that they just think is the best high school baseball around. And these kids they grow up playing so much, and the weather's so good, they just get good at baseball. So, we're suburban districts out here. We have to compete a lot against these bigger 6A schools, and I just think it really prepares us. Most of our non-district games are at least for us, we play probably 2/3 of the schools we play are bigger than us, or 6A schools. A lot of them are really good. So I think our district just gets really prepared to be
now,
good.
Coach, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue, please.
No, you're fine. I was done.
Okay. Now, Coach, I wanted to ask you this particular question. I heard you made mention about your pitching. And some schools, just for whatever the case may be, might not have that go-to guy out of the bullpen, or the go-to guy that you can start every other game or so, and almost assure you 6 to 7 quality starts during district play.
Right.
I come up with this theory, and I want to run it by you to see what you think about this. The odds in getting a hit from a pitcher always leans toward the pitcher, especially the first time around when he's facing a batter, in most cases.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, unless the pitcher's just floating meatballs up there, I completely agree with that.
Okay, absolutely. Now, with that being said, if I know, and I'm talking more or less from a high school collegiate approach right now, why not try to create 3 pitchers out of 1? And then we know we call it bullpen by committee, this, that, and the other. But if you assign a guy, I'm a big advocate on pitch count. I'm an old catcher myself. So I don't like wearing my guys out. I get a little concerned, I'll be honest, when I'm seeing high schoolers throwing anywhere between 90 and 115 pitches in a game. That concerns me, because it falls into that select ball theory. I'll touch on that a whole nother time, because we could talk about so much stuff, and I know we're limited today. But however, do you think it would be a successful formula if you assign 3 pitchers to a game, allowing these guys to go through not the bullpen, but to go through the batting order one time? Whenever they get through that batting order that first time, you change your pitchers, regardless how it's going, just to keep the edge and have your batters go through the whole process and the mental process of readjusting to another pitcher.
Yeah, I agree with that theory. I mean, I did that to a certain degree this year. We didn't have a guy this year. In fact, that was the main thing I was telling people when they asked how we were going to do this season. I was like, well, we don't have that guy I just hand the ball to once a week, and I know I'm going to win. But we would have guys that would go through either one time through the lineup, and that was it for them, or some guys, if they just mow through the lineup, we might try to get them twice through the lineup. But we definitely did a pitcher by committee in 3/4 of our games this season, and just had to. Unless a guy was just absolutely dominating his opponents, then it's a great idea. Now, the only thing about it is you better have 3 guys that can pound the strike zone. That's one of the biggest deals about successful pitching. I listened to an interview with the Coach Rova's show at Louisiana Lafayette last year, and he was talking about on the college level, a college team will only get 3 hits in an inning, 1 out of every 27 innings. And I think that equates to a really good high school ball, too. So very rarely will a team just come up and get 3 or 4 or 5 hits in 1 inning. And if you have pitchers that don't give them walks and don't give them hit batters, and you got fielders that don't give up at-bats by making errors, then you got a chance to win with even guys that, don't have dominating stuff. And that got proven in the playoffs this year. A lot of our 3-game series, we didn't throw guys with dominating stuff. We weren't facing guys with dominating stuff, but they sure threw strikes and changed speeds and had really good defenses, so it became very difficult to score.
And that, my friend, is what we call pitching. A lot of guys are so hung up on the velocity and how hard a guy is throwing, and he's just simply doing that. He's throwing. He's not a pitcher at all. So if you can teach a guy how to pitch, and a good pitcher only throws strikes when he needs to.
Right.
So I'm glad that we could agree on that particular subject right now. We're talking with Doug Rush, head baseball coach of the Tomball Cougars here on the OpenMic Broadcast Network. Coach, I got one more question for you that we were allowed to leave as an open-ended question. And
Okay.
give us your take on select ball.
Select ball is really good and not so good in ways. I'm not an anti-select ball guy. I know this. I grew up playing just 15 or 16 Little League games a summer, and I kept thinking to myself, man, I wish I could play more baseball. But what happened is it's gone way overboard. I'm a guy that believes you should play 30, 40, 50 baseball games in the spring and early summer. Take the month of July off and enjoy it with your family, and then play some football or basketball in the fall and spring. I don't think you should play year round. Now, that being said, I do like the fact that from the time you're 8 or 9 years old until you're in high school, I like the idea of getting a whole lot more game experience and a whole lot more live at-bats than kids used to. I think they're a little more polished now than they used to be, and I know that's why kids play on the varsity a little bit more than they used to as freshmen and sophomores, and freshmen make bigger impacts in college because they get a little bit better at the game a little quicker. My main issue with select is the way they run their tournaments. It destroys pitchers' arms. They do that round robin on Friday and Saturday, or the round robin on Saturday where they play 3 or 4 games, and then they seed you on Sunday, and sometimes the same pitchers will be throwing 2 or 3 days in a row, regardless of how many pitches they throw. It's not good for them, So I don't know the solution to that. I like the idea of having really good players on one team competing against each other, but I wish they'd just do it maybe in a doubleheader once a week or something like that instead of, going through these big tournaments. Now, it drives me crazy when I see select teams win a weekend tournament and they get a championship ring. I think championship rings should be reserved for people who win state and national and conference championships and not just handed out like candy.
Sound like Coach Rob down there at UL, man.
Yeah.
All right. Coach, we could always talk until the cows come on. So let's just make this pact right now. We'll continue a baseball conversation on a regular basis right here at the OpenMic Broadcast Network. Does that sound like something we could look forward to?
That sounds like a lot of fun. I love to talk baseball.
All right, Coach Doug Rush of the Tomball Cougars talking baseball here at the OpenMic Broadcast Network. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. We'll shut it down for now, but until the next time, be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.